All right, so before I address today's trade setup, I want to talk about something super important for all traders because I think we all suffer from this. And that is at a deep subconscious level, no matter how much we try to fix our psychology and maintain discipline, there is some degree of primal brain that really wants to, react in a fight or flight kind of response, chase price, chase gains, get upset if we miss our trades, and really ultimately do a lot of behaviors that negatively impact our P&L. And in my case, where I typically see this is when I start growing funded accounts, I'll notice that at first the equity curve is nice and smooth, and then it just drops off once I start actually caring, like, oh, I've made some gains, and then I get upset and start chasing. And I'll show you real quick what I mean. So here's, this is a brand new month that we're on, and we have, today. However, last month was more difficult for me, a lot more red than usual. I don't typically have this many red weeks and break-even weeks. Like, that's just really poor performance for me. And look at my equity curve, right? I'm starting out trading, started making gains, making consistent gains. It's a relatively nice looking equity curve. And then it just plummets, right? And this in part due to is, yes, the last 6 weeks have been more difficult price action. But that doesn't matter because if price action is difficult, my rules, trading system, and behavior should account for that, and it shouldn't damage my equity curve that bad. And so what I realized is the cause of this is actually, for me, these trading dashboards, like what we're looking at right here in TradeZella. And it's kind of like the gold standard for, sharing your trading and measuring it. You have all your metrics. Like, look at my trade expectancy. It plummeted this month down to $18 a trade. And so, I felt like I couldn't trade. And then I just felt like, especially after this week here, I'm red on the week, red on the week. And then halfway through last week, I'm down another few R. And I was just feeling terrible and looking at this dashboard. It kept making me make poor decisions, Towards the end of the week, I'm like, oh, well, I got to make back the gains and see what I can do. And then I start taking subpar setups. I start breaking my rules. And all of that was because I was focused on the P&L, because it's kind of like the main metric by which everyone, measures your trading, your P&L. And these dashboards here, they don't do a very good job of giving you an alternative. Like, yeah, you can change this chart to just be, R, but it still displays, win or lose, and it still displays the P&L total at the end of the week. So one thing I'm trying is I built myself a new trading app, and let's see if you can see it here. The whole idea of this app here is that it just tracks performance, and you get graded not on your P&L, but by your performance. Because if we have good rules and a good trading system that produce a positive equity curve, in the long term, the only thing that gets in the way of that is behavioral variance, or what us as traders do that deviate from our plan. And so I built this over the weekend. It's brand new. It's called the Consistency Lab. It's build consistency, improve results. Because I've seen it time and time again in my trading or in my back testing even. And even in my back testing, once I start caring about how big that account's getting, because it's like, oh, I've never grown an account this fast, this quick, or whatever the thing is, I will start screwing myself in back testing. And so that is really telling, I think. And so I just decided, and I have a lot of spreadsheets where I do all this kind of stuff, but it's not dynamic. It's not visually sexy, and if I showed it to you on the screen here, no one's going to care. And so I decided to build this app here. And basically what it does is it just measures my trading performance. So we can see there's only one day so far. Today is my first day using it. I just finished it this morning, at least to get it to a state where I could start recording data into the database. But, I need to make this look nicer up in here, but it gives you an average grade, an average score, number of A grade days, your best day for a percentage. I need to add a percentage there, your worst day, and the difference in R. So in other words, it looks at how much R you captured versus how much R you missed, and it gives you a total. And that's actually not right. I need to fix this whole top column. But ultimately, you just go into your day and you enter your data. In this case, I'm looking at this, I currently have it built for AM, lunch, and PM sessions. But, grade yourself percentage-wise, rules followed. How much emotional control did you have? How was your setup quality? How was the context quality of the trade? How was your execution and management? How much R did you realize and how much R did you miss? You fill in those values and you save it, and it comes back to the calendar. It populates your day. It gave me an A and a 95% today, and it gave me a fire badge for not missing any R. You come down here, and it starts giving you some achievement badges, which, okay, you know, like a 1-day streak, there's only 1 day of data, best day streak, 1 day, and then my monthly grade is an A. Now, it starts throwing you back some interesting information too. This performance curve and trend chart won't really show much until I have two trades on here, but it'll plot out an A grade threshold for performance, a B grade threshold for performance, and it'll start plotting along this and giving you a daily score and a moving average so you can see, you know, your performance over time. And then it gives you a radar chart for your processes. So, you know, my rules were adhered to 100%, but my context was only 90% on this trade. And over time, you know, you'll be able to see, just like on the TradeZilla dashboard like this over here, you can see my weak spot or your strong points on this radar chart. And then it just kind of gives you some more badges. You know, I've captured 100% of the R value that I should have. You know, my execution is elite. I have an elite capture quality. My opportunity leakage is elite. That means 0% was lost. And then luck versus discipline, right? I want to plot this on a scatter chart and basically look at your trades. It says, was it a disciplined winner? Was it a good loss? Was it a lucky win? Were you gambling and won? Or was it just a process failure? So your system failed and your trade failed. So anyways, I'm really excited to start gauging my trading based off this chart here. And that is why my current chart says light bulb only. Oh boy. And look at this. The chart went blank. I wonder if the internet went out. All right, internet's back up. So all that to say is that I came in today looking for a light bulb only setup for a first A grade day, because what became most important to me today wasn't making money. And instead, I wanted to have an A+ performance. I wanted this first grade on my scorecard to be A+, because otherwise I might be chasing the money and take a subpar setup, make stupid decisions and things like that. So that said, what was the trade setup for today? So I'm going to go back into replay mode and show you real quick. I was also anticipating, you know, subpar price action potentially today. Today's Monday of NFP, which means my rules are slightly different. I only trade the AM session on NFP weeks. I've done the back testing and I've got the statistics to show that a PM and lunch are not worth it. So when we came into this session, definitely a little bit of a mixed bias. Not mixed, just not the strongest bias. When we looked at the daily chart this morning, overnight had already swept the previous day high, but we are in a super strong bullish uptrend. So, you know, we can pretty reliably say we're going up. On the 4-hour chart, noticing, you know, that this was the 6 a.m. candle and this 10 a.m. candle was not there yet. So just pretend that this candle's not there. I wanted to see, I don't want to say I wanted to see, but just noting that we've taken external range on the 4-hour, trading back. We're just kind of floating up on the 4-hour, which isn't the greatest, you know, but it can happen at all-time highs. We want to take external, come back for internal, and then continue on from more external. However, that might not necessarily happen at all-time highs. So zooming down into the 1-hour chart here on MNQ, looks a little bit better here on the 1-hour chart. We can see that the 9 a.m. candle had swept all this internal range of liquidity. And on the 1-hour, we can see a nicer internal sweep for potential run of this external liquidity. So that made me a little bit more confident that if price came back down into here, we would be seeing an opportunity for a long down at the 50% of the 75%. We can see price dug deeper down into the discount zone than I would typically like to see. We tapped into this 1-hour fair value gap and we made these equal lows. Now I want to point out these equal lows here in a minute. Then on the 15-minute chart, now there's a lot going on here that I really like to see that made me bullish. We had this new week opening gap that we were running down into this morning. We traded through it, but we tapped into this sell side liquidity down here, a previous new day opening gap. And what made me really feel like I wanted to see buy side delivery was this very strong equal highs here on the 15-minute. I really liked those. So, you know, we're thinking internal to external, right? We have external was taken coming back down for internal, while noting this trendline liquidity down here. So in the back of my mind, I'm keeping all of that in my mind in terms of longs. And so that made me feel like, well, I need to see, you know, a quality setup down in here if I'm going to take anything, because it could want to run. These are, you know, like long, these are swings that could domino where it takes this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. Like typically when you hit one of these, you can kind of run through all of them. Nonetheless, coming into the chart, or coming into the day, I wanted to see longs. And if we go back down to the 1 minute chart, what we had up here today is the 1 minute chart here had some beautiful equal highs up in here, just lots of liquidity, but we had kind of gapped quite a ways away from it. So I didn't necessarily like that. I don't want to see a huge gap. And then down in here, we really didn't have any nice inversion, and it was kind of forming it below or before 9:30. We did sweep a low, and I don't typically want to see a model take just the first inversion that comes after a large dump like that. I want to see a sweep of a low, so it's forming a nice swing low right there. Now, on the 1 minute chart, or let's zoom up to the 3 minute. The 3 minute had a nice little inversion, and that's kind of what I was eyeballing. But the 3 minute closed above this little inversion at 9:27, and I didn't want to take a trade pre 9:30. So I went back to the 1 minute and basically just kind of sat and waited. And I can take an inversion, or I can take an inversion and a breaker. So we had the 3 minute inversion. We also kind of had this funky 1 minute inversion. And play price forward here just a little bit. And right here, we closed above, forming this breaker. And I'll just put on my trade drawings real quick. So we formed this breaker. And what happened next was we get a little bit of a retracement. I was kind of waiting for a retracement back down into the breaker. I liked that candle, so I took this, marketed in right in here. And then we saw some nice response. I took a partial right there. You notice I partialed at 1R, and I partialed before the target. That's kind of what I've found works best for me, is not waiting till the final target. It just improved my overall expectancy on my trade results. We had all these swing highs and a relative equal high up here. Oh, I forgot to mention down at this low that equal low that presented. So we swept Asia low, we swept London low, swept Asia low. We came down to the New York PM low and another New York AM low. But there was SMT with ES down in here. So ES swept out these lows. If it hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have taken this trade because of these equal lows. So contextually, there was a lot going on here that made me feel that was worth putting up risk against these relative equal lows. And then, of course, if you were trading this morning, you know the rest of the story. Price just kind of accumulated for a little while. And then for me, I got, I'll just stop fast forwarding. There's no point. Let me leave the replay. I got tapped out here at break even. I drug my stop up. That's part of my system. When I take a 1R partial, I go break even stop. And we can see that ultimately, look how deep this retracement was. It's kind of, you know, what I expect on NFP weeks. It's either going to go or it's going to do one of these kind of things. And we can see that price chose not to distribute. It came back down and retraced very deeply, very similar to the higher time frames. Like I was telling you, the 1 hour had a super deep retracement, even though it was bullish. Did a very similar thing here on the lower time frame. And then it just floated upwards and eventually hit my target, you know, an hour and a half later. So be it. I'm okay with that. You know, for me, this was an A grade breaker, an inversion, not an A plus one, because even contextually, I had reasons to invalidate these equal lows below. I still can't grade this A plus because of that context down in here. But nonetheless, I partialed at 1R. That gave me a half-hour win on this trade. I took this live, so you know my executions are on my live stream from today. And here's the details if you want to see on this trade. So here's how I document my trades. Let me see if you can see this. Please excuse my spelling. We have the trade model is a breaker, inversion, fair value gap. The grade is an A, so overall I gave it an A. The logic. So here's what I like. I just want to double check that this makes sense. I'm saying we're in a discount for shooting for external range liquidity in a bullish market. Like that makes complete sense. The pros of this trade setup, there was mini targets, there was equal highs, there was session liquidity, we had bullish SMT, we had a major sweep of many 4-hour levels, we're in a discount, we tapped into a 1 hour fair value gap. So I had lots of reasons, pros for this trade setup. And the only cons that I had was there's equal lows below, but SMT with ES. Now my rule set says I can take that. That's totally valid to take. Next is context clarity score. And so beyond like your trade model, and I guess in a way I don't say everything in here because there's just some things I know. It's like I know it's a breaker with an inversion or it's an inversion with momentum, like, and it has momentum. Like I just know those things and I didn't necessarily detail them out here. But the context clarity score is something I've added into my system. And this is a double check that I do before entering the trade. I check to see if it's aligned with the higher time frame. Does time make sense? And by this, what I mean is, contextually, does it make sense for it to play out right now? For example, if this trade happened more at like 11 a.m., I would say no, it doesn't make nearly as much sense, more than likely. And could be a whole discussion in and of itself in terms of the time alignment, but I hope you get the idea. Just checking for a major liquidity sweep, the context, like it has to, like making sure I'm seeing we got some sweep. Do we still have a target from an internal to external perspective? So sometimes, you can get trade models, but you don't have an external target. So like here, we don't really have an external target. Like this was a brand new high, versus if we came back down and we floated back down into discount, and then now I have all this external liquidity to target, right? No unresolved opposing liquidity. That means, is there any reason nearby? So in this case, it would be these equal lows for New York PM low. That's a reason, that's unresolved liquidity that it might want to take a stab down there for. And I checked to make sure there's no opposing liquidity. In this case, I said it was fine because there was an SMT. And then checking for no news day or no news incoming in the next few minutes, and making sure it's high probability conditions. Yes. And now in this case, I would say NFP week is a lower probability conditions, but I have criteria built into place for that. So for me, 9:30 to 11:10 is allowable Monday through Thursday of NFP. And one trade, one shot, one kill. So just that's how I give this a yes. Next is A grade plus displacement, yes. And then I can rate the price action. In this case, I don't have much to say. Like it was nice price action before I entered the trade. So there's, I want to note the price action because like if the context is looking kind of iffy and price action is looking kind of iffy, then that means my trade setup, while my trade setup could be A plus, I need to consider the whole picture, and maybe I shouldn't take the A plus model when the context is poor and the price action is poor. And then lastly, the trade management. This is like, once I entered the trade, did I switch into analysis mode and just manage the trade according to my management plan? No more, like I'm not going to change my target. I'm not going to change my stop loss. I'm not going to cut the trade early. I'm not going to do anything other than just manage it. I'm not going to analyze the charts or any of that. So gave myself 100% for that. Emotions is where I just note like some days things come up. You experience them in trading. Like you start to feel things like, oh, it was 9:30, price was ripping hard. And so my heart rate felt elevated and it kind of, caused me to do X, Y, and Z. So any notable emotions, I put that on this trade. And then just a general note section. Sometimes there's things to say about like, oh crap, the internet went out. So I collapsed the trade via my phone. And then you can know why you did what you did. So anyways, that's how I document my trades. These are all the things that I look for when I'm grading a trade setup. Here was the trade setup from today, resulting in, I got to break the habit of going to TradeZella. Like no more, gone. I'm going to come back to my dashboard here, and I don't care what my R value for the day is. I can walk away proud because I got a 95% today. So yeah, I think that's it for this trade recap. I hope that was valuable.